welcome to the GoodTalk podcast, the show that aims to inspire positive change around the world. I'm your host, Francesca Hodgson, co-founder of GoodBox, a tech for good company helping non-profits with their digital fundraising. We're best known for our tap to give donation points, and to all our donors and budding volunteers, a huge thank you. In this series, we'll be exploring how mission-led organisations and individual acts of kindness can make a huge difference. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy listening to our GoodTalk podcast. Today, I'm honoured to be speaking with Polly Gilbert, co-founder of Tap London. Tap London is an amazing volunteer-led non-profit organisation that was founded back in 2017 to help improve the lives of London's homeless. Through simple donations via contactless, Tap has enabled over 60,000 Londoners to come together to raise over a staggering £250,000 to improve the lives for people living on our streets. So without further ado, please welcome Polly.
Hi, Fran. Thank you for that intro. That was lovely.
Polly's one of those people that just walks into a room and makes everyone smile. You have the most amazing energy, and I'm super excited to be talking to you today. For our listeners, I just want to start with a quick backstory about how you and I came to meet, because it was through your organisation, Tap London, looking for a supplier of contactless donations, which was really very niche back in 2017, that we first got talking. And I remember that first moment when there was kind of a pause and it was like, are we competitors? Are we going to be allies? But actually what transpired in the end was the most beautiful synergy and a relationship that led you to coming on board to GoodBox, being our first marketing director, and really being able to champion our brand from a place of real passion and wanting to make a difference, because you could see firsthand how amazing the impact could be when you start to look to technology to remove the friction out of donating. And so I'm really excited to get started, and I can't wait to talk to you more about your journey with Tap London and about what inspires you.
Thanks, Fran. And what a journey we have been on, this crazy contactless journey. We founded Tap London in 2017, and it is a charity. At the beginning, we founded it as a community interest company, which is kind of a charitable version of a company. And it took us probably a couple of years to set it up into the charity that it is today. But at its heart, we do the same thing that we've always done, which is trying to raise money from the community to help homeless people. And over the years, we have done that in a lot of different ways. We've had our trial and error. We have things that have worked really, really well. And the model that we've landed on today is kind of the perfect iteration of everything we've tried. So basically, people, wherever you are in the city, you can stop and give a £3 contactless tap. And that money will go to a local service, which is helping homeless people in your area. And that is kind of the first idea that we had with Tap. Was there are so many community initiatives, charities, amazing people doing amazing work with London's most vulnerable. But me, as a person who's just out buying my coffee or walking to work, I don't know about that. So it can be really easy to feel quite hopeless as somebody that's walking around the streets, seeing rising numbers of people who are on the streets. But actually, there is this amazing network in London and in all cities across the country where really valuable charity work is being done to improve people's lives. So at Tap, we're all about kind of connecting those two things. So generous people who really care but aren't really sure where to place their generosity, and these amazing charities who are doing groundbreaking work and really working their asses off, but quite often people just don't know about them.
Great, thank you. And I think what stands out for me is that I put myself in the shoes of you when you describe yourself as just going to work and grabbing a coffee and being so busy. And it's really compelling to hear that is such a great support network out there. But to actually go from that moment of realization that says, I wish I could do something more about this problem, I wish there was something more that could be achieved. How do you go about having an idea to say, well, why don't I just set up a charity to help actually finding the time, finding the energy, finding the resources? I mean, all of that's not an easy, quick and simple win. So what made you actually take action?
I mean, it must be a combination of things. And you will know just as well that it is so difficult to take an idea from an idea to reality. We've had so many people who say to us when we tell them about Tap, I had that idea, me and my mates talking about that in the pub, because it is a kind of really simple idea and it's something that people spend a lot of time thinking about, but it is difficult to kind of turn that into reality. I think I had a rocket on my side, which is I had a very energetic and determined co-founder who was convinced that we were going to quit our jobs immediately and go and do this. And we were working at the same ad agency at the time. I think as well as that, both of us were kind of in these jobs that were quite early in our careers at that stage. It wasn't like we were walking away from these big salaries that it would be such a huge hit for us to go and start something. And we were in our early 20s. It kind of felt like the world was our oyster and we could just set our sights on something that we really passionately cared about and just go for it, just run at it and see where we could get to. So probably a bit of a healthy dose of naivety, a lot of determination. And yeah, we just threw caution to the wind and got started.
And so now you've had that experience, now you're no longer quite so naive about what it takes to found a charity. What does it take for anybody looking to enable a non-profit organisation or get going on a new venture of this calibre?
So I suppose some practical tips for people who might be thinking about it. I mentioned earlier that we founded a community interest company first. Anyone who is thinking about this and might have like a really bright idea of how they can change the world and make the world a better place, start with a community interest company. They're really quick to get set up. Get a website set up, just get a Squarespace or a Wix or something. You can set a website up in an hour, just a concept site, and just start talking to people about it and see what they think about your idea. Kind of what are the emotional pulls? What do they like about it? What do they not like about it? And just start testing. I think if I look back to kind of the early days, someone gave us some advice once, which I thought was amazing and it really stuck with me. And they said that thinking too much about kind of the end journey will terrify you, so you don't really do anything. Like you have to kind of adopt this attitude of playful curiosity and just keep trying things, keep your mind set on the thing that you want to achieve. So we wanted to connect communities with homeless charities. We kept our eyes on that, but we were really open to kind of trialing and testing and failing and learning as we went along. And I think if you get too obsessed with doing things the perfect way, it kind of terrifies you into doing nothing at all. So yeah, from a practical sense, get something tangible that exists, a website. If you can get a Kick set up, do that, and just start talking to people and trying it out.
I love that. So don't let fear paralyze you, and really it's about kind of enjoying the journey and enjoying the experience, because I suppose there are so many learnings that you've experienced along the way. So on that topic, do you want to share any stories about starting the charity, anything in particular that stands out as being kind of quite eye-opening to you?
Anything that was particularly eye-opening? I mean, one thing that was really interesting for us early on, and I imagine that anybody who's going into the world of charity or kind of social enterprise will probably come up against a similar issue. The first version of TAP that we ran was a model where we hired people who were homeless. So Katie and I would go out, we would literally just walk around the streets at nighttime wearing our TAP puffer jackets, chatting to people that we met on the streets and just seeing if anyone was looking for work. And this was really us kind of testing this model where we would get people into quick employment, give them a fair wage, and kind of see how that could help people lift themselves out of homelessness. And we hired 8 people through this scheme. And we used GoodBox's really early concept technology. So Fran mentioned that you mentioned, Fran, that we met way back in 2017. I can still remember you demoing your first bit of tech. And it is fair to say that it has come a long way since then. If we could have got our hands on a GoodBox core back in those days, oh my goodness, we would have been raising a lot of money. But anyway, so we had these kind of prototype devices and we had our team out and we were basically chatting to people. It worked really well in student areas who were super engaged. And we were raising funds for not just the guys' actual pay, we were paying them London living wage, but then any surplus that we had on top of that, we would let our team choose a charity that they wanted to support and we would grant it to them. And this model, people loved it. Like everyone that we spoke to on the street loved it. We would get people tweeting us, Instagramming us. We had people getting in touch saying like, how can they sign up to keep doing this on a monthly basis? Can they provide support to the person they just spoke to? We had Thomson Reuters come and cover us. We had The Guardian cover us. And this was without having any PR team. We didn't have kind of any machine behind us. Just people were really interested. But behind the scenes, the model actually wasn't working, and it wasn't providing people the value that we wanted it to. So the guys that we were working with, we had one of our team members who ended up falling back into addiction after we worked together. And we had somebody else who wasn't in a particularly good way. And I don't think that TAP kind of kicked that off. But as a two-man band, we didn't have the support network. We didn't have the trained staff to actually support the complex needs of the people we were helping. And that was a really big learning curve for us, because you're getting all of these positive signals on one side, that the press are loving it, your friends are loving it, people on the street are loving it. So you think, oh, we're doing this amazing kind of social impact kind of program, but actually we needed to take stock of the fact that we weren't having the impact that we needed to. So no matter what the fanfare was, that version of the model couldn't exist. And that was quite an interesting learning curve. I think it's useful for people to hear about, even though it is one of our kind of failures, I guess. That, yeah, you always have to make sure that everything is in alignment, that your impact is in alignment with your mission, and that is in alignment with what it wasn't kind of, I guess, it wasn't all fitting together, and we had to be self-critical to recognize that and pull away from all of the good things that were being said about the program.
That's super interesting. And I guess the point is, you don't know unless you try, and it's okay to fail when setting yourself such ambitious targets in particular. And actually, I remember those days and that prototype technology that you talked about, and it really was like a plastic bucket with an Android reader, one of those battery packs that you keep in your back pocket just in case like your phone ran out, all kind of cobbled together in this aesthetically pleasing shell. And what was most compelling for us is that still, you know, you as a relatively young unknown charity and us as a relatively young unknown technology company could still create value, and were still supported in the most amazing way by completely unknown individuals that were absolutely championing the causes on both sides of the table. And I think particularly when we talk about homelessness, that's such a hot topic, particularly in the capital, and something that everybody wants to get behind. Like, nobody wants to see other people in distress. Like, as humans, we are, you know, by nature empathetic, and we want to find ways in which we can help. And what I really love is that you found a way in which you can get people to come together to support a coalition of 18 amazing charities that help channel those funds raised and ensure that they go to the most proactive use. Still, there are so many topics to be addressed when looking at homelessness, and something that I was staggered to see recently, and I don't know if you have any thoughts around this, is when the pandemic hit and when the pandemic hit and they were looking to rehouse everybody on the streets of London, they actually realised that the problem was far greater than they'd ever first anticipated. Because it wasn't until you actually went and had to have an objective of rehousing everybody on the street did they realise that the numbers were just not anywhere near the data that they'd previously thought. So I don't know if you wanted to give any comment around the current state of homelessness and whether the pandemic has even highlighted the problem in a better way, and whether we'll see some changes from here on in.
Yeah, it's actually quite terrifying. So, not exactly as you said, not only did the government realise that their existing counts of who they thought were on the street were way lower than they actually are, which, to be fair, charities, Shelter have been saying this for years, Crisis have been saying this for years, they're saying your counts are wrong. But in addition to that, as the hospitality industry and kind of a lot of, I suppose, transitory work just disappeared, the flow of new people to the streets was massive. So yeah, it was a bigger problem than anyone thought, and it also has become a lot bigger. In London in particular, obviously the mayor ran a programme getting everybody into hotels. So the mayor worked with, I think it was IHG, but I'm not sure. And there was kind of this golden period where, when we were speaking to our colleagues at the GLA, which is Greater London Authority, all of their housing and land team were super excited because they had this kind of brief moment where they were getting really good interaction with people that are on the streets. And that can be so difficult. It can be really difficult to get good continuous time with people, to actually put them through useful programs, whether that's kind of drug and alcohol courses or psychological help, whatever it is. And they were able to kind of see people on a daily basis and actually make some really good progress in getting people rehoused and getting people's health better. And then there was this kind of terrifying drop off where the funding for them to be able to do that was looking like it was going to end. And so I think there have been positives of it, which are the charities that are really there to help people have been able to have more one-to-one contact with them. But unfortunately, I think as a problem, it's getting worse and worse. And I think the pandemic is going to just kind of further the inequalities in our society. I mean, you kind of see that already. Like, there are big companies, corporates that have done incredibly well from the pandemic, and there are small local businesses that are kind of running out of money and going bankrupt. So I see it will be very similar on an individual level for people. So yeah, the work of charity in stepping in there where the government can't or won't has never been more important.
Yeah, you raised such an important point there. And then with Tap London itself, what is really, really impressive is the fact that you did manage to get the support of the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, behind your campaign, even as a small volunteer-led charity. Just goes to show that if you're ambitious enough, you can actually achieve what you set your sights on. And talk to us a little bit about that campaign. I mean, we got over 100 donation points across the capital, and you talked earlier on about how that volunteer-led fundraising model just wasn't working for you. It was just causing too many complexities in your operational process. But the shift to an unattended model, whereby you would leverage the support from retail partners or office spaces, or indeed kind of install donation points into shop windows, that was more successful for you, and that enabled you a way to have a wider reach and to raise this staggering kind of $250,000 in such a short space of time. So do you see this as something that you will continue to provide, and do you see yourselves widening that campaign at all?
Yeah, so at the end of we called it our vendor program, which is when we were running the employment program, we kind of took stock, and the main things that we had learned were contactless really works, even though at that time the tech was kind of not brilliant. Contactless really worked. People really wanted to engage with it, and people really, really care about homelessness. And then we're like, how can we bring these three things together into a more simple model that we can run in a more effective way, but that still has good impact? So yeah, we did have some kind of kooky ideas for getting in touch with Sadiq Khan. We actually set up a website called straighttosadiq.com. That one flopped. That did not get straight to Sadiq. And then we kind of took the more traditional route and applied for a funding grant, which we did eventually secure. And in the early days, we rolled out 30 contactless donation points. So we had one in Westfield, which was really brilliant, like a big, beautiful window point. And then we had smaller donation points, which we put into kind of cafes and pubs and bars across the city. And since then, we've just been kind of slowly increasing the rollout. So we now have over 100 devices that are out there. And they perform really well. I mean, in particular, people ask us quite a lot about which sites perform well. So it seems like a good time to say it now. Independents are so brilliant. Like, some of the cafes that we work with in London, shout out to this cafe called the Gentlemen Baristas. They've got about 10 sites across the city. They are so engaged. They've raised over £20,000 through about 8 devices, which is such an unbelievably incredible achievement. And yeah, it's worked brilliantly. Last year we introduced online giving as well. And we now kind of run that for the mayor's team. In terms of expanding, Katie and I run TAP voluntarily, and we do that with a lot of support from the GLA. So most of the project is now run from within the mayor's team. I think we have been delighted to see other cities across the country do and run similar initiatives. So there's one in Bristol. I was speaking to guys in Dublin the other day at Smart Dublin who are looking to set up something similar. There's one in Cambridge. They're everywhere now. And I feel like that is such a brilliant thing, because it's a scalable model. And really, anyone with the help of a partner like GoodBox, any community group would be able to run a similar initiative and to do so successfully. So I don't think we have any plans for kind of world domination with TAP. I think we're really proud of what we achieved in London, and we're really happy to see other people doing the same thing in other cities.
Absolutely. And you were both a trailblazer and now an influencer, and it's great to see other cities adopting that model. That's really, really compelling. So then this is probably a question that maybe we would typically start with, but I'm really keen to know kind of what motivates you on a personal level.
What motivates me? This is going to sound kind of, maybe it will sound cheesy. I love helping other people. So that always motivated me with TAP. I was so motivated to create something that was going to have a positive impact in the world, that was going to kind of live beyond me and Katie, that could survive without us. So the partnership that we have now with the Mayor of London is amazing for that. And yeah, I think that everyone, it's kind of in keeping with what you guys are doing with this podcast and what you guys do at GoodBox. I think everyone has a role to play in making the world a slightly better place. Weirdly, my partner Kian and I were actually at a church yesterday because we're getting married next year, and the vicar was kind of running through what's going to happen in the ceremony and what we're going to say. I'm not a particularly religious person, but the things that he was saying about community really, really stuck with me. He was like, this marriage, or whatever you do in your life, wherever you put your passion and your energy, whether that's work or a side hobby, it should benefit your community and it should help the people around you beyond just your family and friends. Like, what are you doing for the people down the street that are struggling to pay their bills? How are you helping your neighbor who's struggling to carry their shopping in? Whatever it is, I love that idea of community. And I think living in London, it's so important to kind of hold on to that and put energy into that. Like, when I moved to London, I felt like I saw this huge homelessness problem, and it felt like a really transitory city where no one was really paying enough attention to anything to actually put roots in the ground and fix it. And then when I began researching and looking for charities, I realized there is so much going on. Like, community is thriving, you just have to look for it. So yeah, I think making the world a better place and community really kind of drives me. I'm passionate about that.
That's so lovely to hear. And of course, the world would be, I personally think the world would be a completely dull place if you were the only person in it. So to find ways to support those around you and make everybody feel that little bit more supported or just happier, people can help us all in some way, shape or form. And, you know, I'm absolutely staggered by everything that you have managed to achieve, both kind of personally and professionally. And of course, I should have said, like, a massive congratulations on your upcoming wedding. That's super, super exciting. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today about kind of helping them on that road to inspiration, or just giving them a little bit of a G up as to how they can help kind of take the first steps on a path of change?
Yeah, I mean, I just think if you're passionate about something, just work out the practical route to how you can do that and just start trying. Like, back before we founded TAP, it seemed like such a distant pipe dream. Like, we came up with a little pitch deck that we would pitch to some really senior people who probably just kind of pushed us to one side. But all you need, Katie always used to say this, my co-founder, all you need is one yes. You just need one person to turn around to you and say, actually, I really like what you're doing there and I'm going to help you. Whether that's kind of someone giving you a bit of funding or someone helping you build a website, whatever it is, just be open with asking for help, and just try it. Like, life is too short to not. Just give it a go and see where you get with it.
And that's so true. And I'd absolutely agree with that there are so many amazing people hiding in your network, particularly as we're also connected now on social media, that you'd be surprised if you just ask what sometimes comes back in return. And, you know, certainly when it comes to ideas and concepts, you know, that seed idea, I'm sure, as you mentioned earlier, hundreds of thousands of people have probably had the same idea, but actually taking the idea and making it real, that's what's so special. That's what's so valuable, is the fact that you've gone on that journey and that you've tried. And whether it succeeds or fails, it doesn't really matter, because there will always be learnings along the way that you can take with you and that you can apply to future projects and missions. Absolutely.
So true. A friend of mine just started a company, and I saw an interview that she did, and she said, like, basically, whether this succeeds or fails, I will never regret doing it. I thought that was just like such a great way of looking at it. Like, if we hadn't have got this partnership with the Mayor of London, if we had only ever done that vendor program, I would never have regretted that, ever. Because I think we did have positive impact on those 8 people we worked with. We raised a lot of money for homelessness. We would have done great work in increasing the profile of contactless and homelessness in general. You just, you never know what's around the corner, but you're not going to regret it. Just, if your heart is in the right place, you've got a good idea. Yeah, it'll be worth it.
Absolutely, so true. And if GoodBox had stuck with their original prototype technology, I don't think we'd got that. You've got 3 hours to fundraise. Go, the battery's dying.
Oh my God, the Bluetooth connection used to kill me. Luckily, one of our vendors used to work at Siemens. I think he worked in Siemens in Romania, and he was so good with them. So anytime anything broke, I was like, Chrissy, come and help.
Good to know there's always somebody that's great with technology at hand. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for giving up your time today, Polly. And I literally wish you all the best of luck with everything else that you're doing. I find you so super inspiring, and I'm sure everybody else listening to found that equally as insightful. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Fran. Thank you for inviting me. I feel honoured.
You've been listening to the Good Talk podcast, the show that aims to inspire positive change around the world. I've been your host, Francesca Hodgson. And for all of today's show notes and links to guest bios, please visit our website, www.goodbox.com/podcasts. Thanks for listening. And until next time, goodbye.